ask me the details because I'm not going to tell y'all the details. That's none of y'all business. Oh, and I don't know the details.
He made it sound like something wild happened.
Correct.
And there's no reason for that.
It was a contract negotiation that was going on. ESPN certainly did not want to lose her. But in the end, rather, she made a decision to walk away from the show.
Molly Qerim just dropped a bomb on Stephen A. Smith, and it's ugly. She's claiming he straight up sold her out for a $2 million deal, and the betrayal didn't just cost her the job she built her name on, it wrecked her rep across the entire industry. And get this, she's got proof. We're talking leaked calls, private meetings, and text messages that all point right at Stephen A. People are losing it, asking, did he really sell Molly out for a paycheck, or is she pulling a setup of her own? The drama is wild, but before we dive into Molly's so-called receipts, we've got to rewind to September 15th, 2025, the day everything came crashing down for her. Imagine this. It's just another Monday morning, nothing out of the ordinary. Molly strolls into the ESPN building, coffee in hand, ready to tackle another day on First Take. She hits her office like always, but there's something sitting on her desk. At first, she probably thinks it's a memo, maybe even a thank you letter for all her years holding that chaotic show together. Nope. Instead, it's a termination notice dressed up like a formal letter. No warning, no heads up, just a cold goodbye in black and white. The message, ESPN was cutting her loose by December. 10 years of keeping egos in check, keeping the show polished, and still, she got the boot like she was disposable. The way it all went down made it even worse. Molly didn't even get the chance to tell her own story. 1 second, she's doing her job, smiling on camera, and the next, boom! Every sports site and entertainment blog is blasting the news before she can even blink. Molly Qerim set to leave ESPN after contract talks collapsed, the headline screamed. It was public humiliation at its peak, and Molly, she was heartbroken and furious all at once. Molly felt completely blindsided, and that same night, she hit Instagram with a post that showed just how deep the pain ran. She wrote, "Now that the news came out earlier than I intended and not in the way I hoped." And that single line broke her fans' hearts. You could feel the betrayal dripping through her words. 10 solid years she gave to First Take, shaping it, running it, keeping it from falling apart, and suddenly, everything she built was crashing down in public for everyone to see. Something was clearly off, but nobody was ready for what happened next. The next morning, fans tuned in expecting to see her on the show, but Molly was nowhere to be found. It turns out she didn't just take the news quietly. Nope, she quit on the spot. She didn't wait for December, didn't play along with ESPN's game plan. She walked away that very moment, and it sent shockwaves through the entire building. ESPN had no idea what hit them. They were scrambling like never before. Suddenly, every exec was in panic mode, trying to figure out how to spin it before it turned into a full-blown PR disaster. But the way they handled it, it made everything look way more suspicious. When ESPN President Burke Magnus finally gave a statement, it sounded stiff and robotic. "We respect Molly's decision and wish her the best in the future." That was it. No mention of her legacy, no proper goodbye, no warmth, just cold words on paper. That's not how you send off a 10-year veteran. It felt more like a cover-up than a farewell. And then Stephen A. Smith suddenly stepped into the spotlight and everything got messy. Because from that point on, Molly's betrayal didn't seem like it came from the network alone. It started to look personal. Industry insiders started whispering that this wasn't just a resignation, it was an emergency exit. Even former ESPN host Marcellus Wiley jumped in on a live session, breaking down the situation like a crime scene.
They're reporting that it's supposed to be the end of the year. Molly, by action, says it's right now. Instead of I'm leaving now, I'm leaving right now. She made it immediate. And then Stephen A. Smith makes the statement. Now, interesting once again, see, peep all these differences, right? These contradictions in terms of how they usually move and how they're moving with Molly. Max Kellerman left. Stephen A. Smith didn't even show up for the last day. Remember that? Interesting. And we all know that typically they don't talk about talent when they're gone. They just say, thank you for your services and we wish you well. This is a little different for many reasons. So when they're trying to paint it, it looks a lot different.
He asked the question everyone was thinking, why would she just ghost the network overnight? But the biggest twist came when Stephen A. finally appeared on First Take the next morning. There he was, no Molly, just him sitting awkwardly under those bright studio lights, fumbling through an explanation. His face said it all. This wasn't just some corporate move. This was personal betrayal from a man Molly thought had her back for over a decade. The emotion in Stephen A's voice was real. You could hear it shaking. But what he said next, that's when things started sounding off. He looked right into the camera and said the details behind Molly's departure were none of our business. But in the same breath, he claimed he didn't even know the details himself. Wait, how can it be none of our business if you don't even know what happened? It didn't make sense. And fans caught that contradiction instantly.
Molly is a co-worker. Molly is somebody that I have leaned on many occasions in the past, as she has done when it comes to me. We've been partners on the show for the last 10 years. And a lot of times some of these things happen and it's just uncomfortable to see. The details, quite frankly, are none of y'all business. But it's not as if I know all the details.
Then it got even shadier. Stephen A started talking about contract negotiations, trying to sound neutral, but he kept slipping. 1 second he's saying he's out of the loop, and the next he's dropping information only an insider would know.
It was a contract negotiation that was going on. ESPN certainly did not want to lose her, but in the end, she made a decision to walk away from the show effective immediately. As you see from her Instagram post, her Instagram story last night.
You could almost feel the tension through the screen. Fans were side-eyeing him hard because every word sounded like a man trying to hide something. Meanwhile, Molly stayed completely silent, but her silence was louder than any statement. In her final farewell post on Instagram, she thanked the fans, the crew, and the network, but she left out one name, one very specific name. She never mentioned Stephen A. Smith, not even once. And that absence said everything. Think about it. When big personalities leave their shows, they always make time to show love to their co-hosts. When Shannon Sharpe left Undisputed, he spent nearly 10 minutes naming names and showing respect to everyone he worked with, even Skip Bayless, despite their tension. But Molly, after a full decade sitting beside Stephen A, holding her ground and keeping that show balanced, she couldn't bring herself to even say his name in her goodbye. That silence hit harder than any speech could. An industry insider summed it up perfectly.
Then a report comes out. That report comes out the next morning. Instead of Molly showing up to work, she puts out an Instagram post. And in that Instagram post, you guys remember, one thing she didn't mention was anybody by name, including Stephen A. Smith. Now, I've left a show or two before, and trust me, you're gonna name some names when you leave that. Just think about Shannon Sharpe when he left Undisputed. Goodness, it took about 10 minutes of all the names he dropped. That's my point. Molly didn't do that. So that lets you know already there's some friction behind the scenes.
When someone doesn't mention you, that's not an oversight. That's intention. And they were right. Molly's exit wasn't quiet. It was strategic. She didn't just walk away, but she made a statement. And what was that statement? Forcing Stephen A., the same man people now believe betrayed her, to sit there alone, staring at the camera, trying to explain her disappearance to millions. It was poetic revenge, the kind you don't have to say out loud because the message is crystal clear. By now, the entire sports world was buzzing. Fans, insiders, and even rival networks were whispering the same question. What really happened behind those ESPN doors? Because whatever it was, it clearly went deeper than a simple contract dispute. Everything flipped when Stephen A. himself started talking. And the more he spoke, the clearer it became that he might have been the one who sold Molly out. Each new detail he dropped only made him look guiltier. And to really understand why Molly finally decided to expose him, you have to grasp just how much power Stephen A. actually holds at ESPN. He's not just a face on camera, he's part of the inner circle. The man sits in the same boardrooms where they decide who gets the big contracts, who gets raises, and who gets cut loose. His word carries weight, especially when money's on the line. So when Molly's contract came up, she walked in expecting fair treatment, but what she got was disrespect. Let's talk numbers for a second. Molly was earning around $500,000 a year, which sounds good until you realize Stephen A. was banking over $20 million. That's more than 40 times her salary. Even hosts on smaller ESPN shows were getting paid more than her. So when she finally asked for what she'd earned, a fair raise, more opportunities, a little respect, the network shut her down cold. They basically told her to be grateful. That's when everything snapped for her. Molly wasn't about to walk away quietly anymore. She was ready to make some noise, and her first target, Stephen A. Smith. She started liking and retweeting posts that called him out as a hypocrite, and one of those tweets blew up overnight. Fans were shook. Then Stephen A. made it even worse. He went on air pretending he wasn't talking about Molly, but literally described her situation word for word. He said, "Some people overestimate their value and end up losing everything." Everyone caught it instantly. The internet exploded. Fans connected the dots, calling him out for being fake, because how could he, of all people, talk about humility?
But I'm watching, and I've been watching over the last several years, people in this business fall by the wayside because we forget that all of us ultimately answer to people. We don't get to define our own value. We don't get to define our own worth. We don't get to sit there and summarily say, this is who I am and this is what I'm going to do. And guess what? I don't give a damn what anybody say unless you have the leverage to do it. Because business is all about leverage.
This is the same man who's made his own money battles public for years. Back in 2009, he got dropped from ESPN after demanding a bigger paycheck and later admitted his ego cost him that job. Then in 2024, he went on a full-blown press tour comparing himself to Dak Prescott just to pressure ESPN into giving him a raise. So when the same guy turned around and acted like Molly was the problem, the person who helped hold First Take together while he built his empire, fans weren't having it. They called foul immediately. Twitter, YouTube, podcasts, everyone started dragging him. It turned into a media storm overnight, and the wildest part, since the heat hit, Stephen A. has gone completely silent. Not a tweet, not a statement, nothing. It's like he knows that staying quiet might be the only thing keeping this story from blowing up even more. But silence can only last so long, and now insiders are starting to leak what really went down behind those closed doors. According to multiple reports, the tension between Molly and Stephen A. had been building for months before her exit. Meetings got heated, emails got leaked, and whispers started flying around ESPN's hallways. Whispers that Stephen had been feeding corporate executives information about Molly's salary demands and behind-the-scenes frustrations. People inside the network started calling him the company's golden snitch, and that nickname stuck fast. One insider even claimed Stephen A. helped frame Molly as difficult to work with, all to protect his own image and paycheck. And if that's true, it's beyond cold. It's calculated. The timing fits perfectly, too. Molly was in the middle of renegotiating her contract when ESPN suddenly decided to restructure the First Take format. A week later, her role was cut down. 2 weeks later, she was out. You don't need to be Sherlock to see how suspicious that timeline is. Meanwhile, fans started digging deeper. Some found old clips where Stephen A. had praised Molly for being the glue that held First Take together, and now those same fans are replaying the clips, calling it fake loyalty. One fan wrote, "He said she was family, then turned around and helped them kick her out. That's betrayal at its finest." The internet went wild with theories. Was Stephen A. protecting his $20 million empire, or was there pressure from ESPN's higher-ups to push Molly out quietly? And just when everyone thought the story had peaked, Molly made a power move. Late one night, she posted a cryptic Instagram story, a black background with one sentence, "Loyalty doesn't live in boardrooms." No names, no tags, but everyone knew exactly who that was about. Within minutes, screenshots flooded X and TikTok, and the post had over 500,000 shares before morning. Then came the real twist, leaked audio from a closed-door production meeting. In the recording, a voice that sounds strikingly like Stephen A. is heard saying, "If she wants more, let her walk. The show will survive." The authenticity of the clip hasn't been confirmed, but it spread like wildfire. Fans were furious, demanding answers from ESPN, and the hashtag Justice for Molly started trending worldwide. By this point, the damage was done. The trust was gone. Stephen A.'s silence wasn't protecting him anymore. It was making him look guilty. Comment sections, podcasts, and sports forums exploded with people saying the same thing. He sold her out for a check. And now the tables have turned, because while Stephen A. stays quiet hoping this storm dies down, Molly's team is reportedly preparing to drop receipts, the kind that could flip this entire story upside down. Screenshots, messages, maybe even that leaked recording in full. The industry's watching, fans are waiting, and one thing's for sure, this feud isn't over yet. At this point, Stephen A. knows he's walking on thin ice because anything he says now will only pour gasoline on a raging fire. The silence that once made him look composed is now making him look cornered. Every word he doesn't say just makes people more convinced that he's guilty of something. Meanwhile, Molly's not backing down, not even a little. If ESPN thought she'd fade quietly into the background, they seriously miscalculated. She's coming for the truth, and she's not stopping until she exposes everyone who played a part in what happened behind those walls. Sources close to her claim she's working on a tell-all interview, one that could blow open the whole network's dirty politics. And this time, it's not just about Stephen A. anymore. She's reportedly ready to name executives, producers, and maybe even other on-air talent who were involved in keeping her underpaid and unheard. If that's true, ESPN might be facing a storm way bigger than any ratings battle. This could hit the company's core. People inside the industry are starting to whisper that Stephen A. was just the first domino to fall, and once Molly drops whatever she's holding, the rest could follow fast. Her fight isn't about revenge anymore, it's about reclaiming the respect she earned after a decade of holding one of the toughest jobs in sports media. Fans are already taking sides, some standing with Molly, others defending Stephen A. But one thing's clear, this feud isn't just a TV beef anymore. It's turning into a full-on power struggle that could change ESPN forever. So what's next? Who's going to get exposed next? Because if the rumors are true, Stephen A. Smith was just the beginning. That's it for today's story, but this saga is far from over. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment with your thoughts below. Who do you think Molly's going after next? Let us know, and see you on the next one.